Craig and I were out past our bedtimes last night.
Oh my god. Late.
You should probably have a half a beer.
Let's just have another half.
Let's just have another half a beer.
It's the greatest and worst thing about the Madison Curling Club, both.
Hey everybody, welcome to Curling Nation Season 4, Episode 8, Beau Knows Curling. Today we're talking with WCF President? World Curling President, Beau Welling.
And for those of you who don't think that
difference,
we've
bro.
got any clout in this curling world, screw you. We got the World Curling President at the drop of a hat to come on the show, and it's a dynamite episode. You're going to want to stick around and listen to this.
Bedtime even,
Yeah, it was past his bedtime.
Might be past your bedtime, too.
It's also my bedtime. Mike and I stayed out too late at League last night.
Yeah, we definitely did. Not opinion.
All right, but first of all, Curling Nation is brought to you by Modus Financial. Visit Modus CC for all your point-of-sale credit card processing needs, whether you need a single card swiper, point-of-sale equipment, online stores to take money from, whatever you need. Mason can get you hooked up. So visit moduscc.com for all your credit card processing needs. Also, Endgame Curling. Croy made some pretty nice brooms. I used one myself. I like it. He's got the new ones called the Icon. Mm-hmm. Is that right? It's it's the smaller,
more compact,
compact head design. Get pretty much
WCF approved.
WCF approved, or is it WCF
World Curling approved?
World Curling approved now.
Whatever.
It's WCF approved.
That's a good question. Now that the WCF has changed to World Curling, are they going to change the names?
WCF.
Am I going to have to change every frickin' page on my website
Yeah,
that
probably.
says WCF approved?
Yeah.
Whatever.
I didn't think about
You got a
that.
bone to pick with Beau all of a sudden.
I do. I wish I would have known this info when we were just talking to him.
Anyway, endgamecurling.com, the most economical broom head replacement. All you do is buy the fabric and change it out. It's a more economical way to change a broom head, which you should do more often than what you do now.
Accurate.
Yes.
Fact, not opinion.
Fact. So updates. There's one thing, a couple things that happened.
The Packers lost in the playoffs, unfortunately.
Ooh, should we have Super Bowl picks?
Chiefs.
Okay.
Chefs by 10.
Oh, I don't think that many. 5.
And no less than 8 Taylor Swift cams.
Whoa.
I hope there's 20.
I'm going to be contrarian, but I think that the 49ers should have lost to both the Packers and the Lions.
They should have.
And somehow squeaked out of both games, so I will also take the Chefs.
Okay.
Maybe that's a good reason to take the 49ers. It's destiny.
It's destiny. They're destined to not start slow and have a shitty first 3 quarters of the game. Got it. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, maybe next week we'll talk about my Bonspiel adventure, too.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't want to talk about that.
You were on assignment.
You were on assignment.
I was on
We gotta hear
assignment,
about
yeah.
your trip to Grindelwald. We have spent way too much time with both. So
We did. We spent a lot of time
Not
with
right now.
Bull. So
Well, we spent the appropriate amount of time because we
yes.
got a ton of
We
great
could-
information.
yes.
we could spend more time with Bo if he has
Yeah,
time.
I think we all
at some
had
point,
questions we didn't ask him.
Yes.
We would have liked to.
Anyway, updates. Team USA, Wendling and Perel. Sorry about the pronunciation if I got that wrong. They won bronze at mixed doubles at the Youth Olympic Games in
Some might call them the
Korea.
Yogs.
The Yogs.
Yep.
Congratulations to them.
Yeah,
Go
way to
team!
go.
Go Team USA.
They only had 1 loss in the whole event.
Did
It
they?
was a great event. Good job. Congrats.
Pretty good.
And some teams won nationals, whatever. Nobody cares. Oh wait.
That's not
Well,
true,
that's not
Joel.
true.
People
We care about the
Right.
teams that won
We care about the
nationals.
teams.
Who do you think won?
Schuster?
Schuster won. Schuster and Peterson.
Schuster and
Again.
Peterson won.
Yeah,
Again.
But it was not without its drama.
It was more dramatic because Schuster lost the 1-2 game, came back and won the final.
Gave up a 3.
Yeah.
Oh, did he throw a meatball in the second end or third end or whatever? Like, that might be a reason to get John on this show someday, just so we can talk about that meatball before he.
You know what the worst
before
part,
he got a 5.
You know what the worst part about Nationals was?
What?
John Landsteiner's illness.
Yeah.
I
Always.
didn't see enough John Landsteiner. That made me sad.
Sorry, John.
So yeah, Schuster
hope you're
beat
doing better.
Dropkin in the final, and Peterson beat Anderson in the final.
True.
We're gonna get more into that next time.
Yeah,
we're gonna have a full Nationals recap with a special guest who was on site, not named Joel, because Joel was also on site. If you watch that,
pushing buttons.
If you watch that wonderful streaming coverage, you can thank Joel and a couple of other people.
Yes.
Among many other people, John and
not many other people, a couple other people.
Couple of people. And Matt Wall did a good job too.
No, I thought the coverage was great. Good job.
Oh, it was pretty good. Yeah.
What else are we going to talk about here?
That's it.
That's it.
I think so.
Yeah, we're gonna get into your bull stories, your bullshit stories next time.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
And then Nationals next time.
Yeah.
Do a full show.
Yeah.
I won my league game last night. In case you didn't know, Joel, Mike was there. He was with
there.
me. We need to like announce when we win because we're having a rough go at it this year.
It's been a rocky season.
We're only like 500 or maybe
was it against my team?
No.
Oh.
We're only like
next to us.
Oh, okay.
We're only like a couple games ahead of 500.
I believe.
Son of a bitch.
Who's your team?
Pretty sure you lost. That's Sylvia and Will.
Oh yeah, you guys
Sylvia,
lost.
Will, and Owen.
Yeah, you lost.
Dave, you lost.
Okay. Well, now I don't have to try so hard when I sub for Dave in leagues in 2 weeks.
There you go.
There you go.
Boom. All right.
Let's get to Beau.
All right, we got a heavy hitter today. This guy designs golf courses. He also happens to be a curler and is very influential. He is the World Curling Federation president. I think I got that right. Welcome to the show, Beau Welling. Beau, how are we doing today?
I'm fantastic, Mike. Thanks for having me on. So good to see you guys.
Absolutely. We should probably just get right into it, right?
Yeah.
How in the world did you get hooked up with curling in general? We'll go through your whole timeline because I think you've been interested in curling about as long as I have. And I'm the men's ratings chair at my club, and you're the World Curling Federation president. So,
I mean, it's a long story that some people want to make into a movie. But for 1988 Calgary demonstration sport. I'm 18 years old, and all of a sudden, here's this sport that I've never heard of that's in the Olympics. And I thought, how can that be? How is that even possible that a sport that I've never heard of is in the Olympics? So I went out of my way to learn about it and see rocks, brooms, ice. And I think this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. How can this be in the Olympics? And then on top of it, there was a 14 or 15-year-old girl that was on the U.S. women's team. And I thought, well, how in the world can somebody so much younger than me be in the Olympics? This is nuts in this sport that I've never heard of. So that, of course, is Craig's sister. And so that was really my first exposure to curling. But I didn't think much of it after that. That's my first memory. And then when the 2002 Olympics rolled around, I came home late one night, probably after a few beverages, and turned on the television, and lo and behold, there were rocks, brooms, and ice. And I said to myself, wait a minute, that's that curling thing. I remember this. And I start watching, and I have no idea what anyone's doing or why they're screaming. But I find myself inextricably just drawn to the television, just in this rapt state. And I go into the Tom Fazio office, golf course design office, the next day, and I mentioned to the guys around the office that this had happened. This sort of weird thing had happened with me watching curling and being fascinated. And one of Tom's longtime guys, a guy named Andy Banfield, piped in that he was originally from Northern Ontario and he had grown up curling. And I was shocked by this because I'd known this man for quite a long time. I'd never heard him utter the word. But all of a sudden, he starts explaining to me, the basics of the game. I would go home that night, watch more of coverage of Salt Lake Olympics, come back, ask Andy questions. And I think just the more that all went on and the more I learned, the more fascinated I got in the sport, in the game. And I think if I look back and I say, like, why is that? I think obviously it's a strategic game, and I think that fits my mind. I think I'm a strategic sort of oriented person, and I am, as you mentioned, in the golf business. And so being around golf and curling now for quite some time, it's very clear to me they come out of the same sort of Scottish ether, if you will. Like, both are angles are important in both sports. They have weird jargon and terms. They're games of honor, integrity, camaraderie, and arguably like excuses to have a drink. And I like doing all of that stuff. And so
Amen,
I do
bro.
have a degree in physics.
Amen.
And they're both incredibly frustrating at times.
Yeah, you can learn it, but take a lifetime to master. Lifetime game sports. And I do have a degree in physics. So I think like the nerd in me liked sort of the science of curling and trajectories and friction and sweeping and all that. So the hook sort of got set in 2002, but maybe I didn't know how deep it was. We built a couple golf courses in Canada, or attempted to, built one and attempted another one between 02 and 06. And I would joke with the Canadian golf guys that I was all about curling and I wanted to start the Southern curling team and all this kind of stuff. And I think they found it interesting that I even knew what that was. And so when the 06 rolls around, there's like 80 hours of live coverage of curling on all the NBC channels. And I basically stopped working for 2 weeks and stayed home watching curling, like literally all day long. And I literally could not get enough of it. Guys in the office thought I was losing my mind. I kept seeing on the television that all the U.S. athletes were from the same place. And that struck me as strange. Like most team sports, people come from different places. And I didn't even know what this place was or even how to pronounce it. But I think Al Gore had invented the internet by this point. So I go online and I learned that this is Bemidji, Minnesota. And that Bemidji brands itself Curling Town, USA, lots of success in curling. And that Bemidji is going to be hosting the U.S. National Championships like 2 weeks after the Torino Olympics. And so I start kind of joking around the office, like, how cool would that be to go watch that? Like, what sport does this even happen where you get to compete for the national championship in your own sort of small town? And the athletes I was watching in Torino were going to be back in Bemidji for nationals. And in reality, I was supposed to be on a business trip, so it was kind of a joke. But the guys are doing weather.com and pointing out this minus 55-degree wind chill in Bemidji. And I'm calling you from South Carolina. I've got a sweater and I just took a jacket off and it's like 60 degrees.
Oh man.
So cold's not really my thing. But the day before I'm to leave for Europe, Europeans call and cancel my trip. So all of a sudden I've got this free week, which never happens in my life, and it perfectly aligns with the U.S. National Championships in Bemidji. And so this now feels like a divine intervention. Like, it feels like I am supposed to go do this. And so I'm seriously thinking about doing it. But online, you could buy a reserved seat, and the period of time to do so has lapsed. So I'm seriously thinking about going, but like, I'm worried, like, what if you can't get in? Like, what if it's sold out? or what if outsiders really aren't welcome? And so I get my longtime assistant Grace on the case, and Grace is from North Georgia. I'm from Greenville, South Carolina. The Fazio office is in Hendersonville, North Carolina. So right in the mountains of the Western Carolinas and Georgia, right where the three states come together. And Grace has a thicker accent than I do. And she called up to Bemidji and got somebody on the phone. I probably need to track down who this actually was. But she's like, hey, my boss, he just loves that curling. And he comes in here every day talking about it, and he loves it. And I see here on the internet, y'all are having a national championship. And I just know he'd love to come up there. Is there any way you could help me get him a ticket? Now, I won't try to do the Northern Minnesota accent, but you guys know that. And so,
oh, sure,
guy,
you betcha. Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. And so at some point, Joel, the guy responds, if you don't mind me asking, like, where exactly are you calling from? And she says, accurately so, well, I'm calling from North Carolina. And he says, well, why in the world is somebody from North Carolina interested in curling? And she says, oh, well, he's not from North Carolina. He's from South Carolina. And the guy kind of chuckled as if that made a big difference, and said, send in the $100 or whatever it is, and not only will we get him a seat, we'll get him the best seat we got, and you've got to give him my phone number, because anybody that would do that, come from South Carolina to Bemidji to watch curling, like, I've got to buy that man a beer. So Grace got off the phone, explained all that to me. Oh, they seem like really nice people. You never take time off. I think you should go do this. So I'm like, well, why not? So I fly up. I couldn't get there till Sunday night, and I land at the Bemidji Beltrami County Regional Airport. And it might as well be it's like midnight. It might as well be the North Pole. It's like blinding snow. Like I'm like stranger in a strange land. I find the SUV she's got rented for me to go check in, I think at a Holiday Inn Express or something like that. And I go downstairs and on Monday morning, all excited to finally see this thing in person that I have arguably obsessed over on television. And the little stale donut breakfast deal is empty except for one guy, and it's Pete Fenson. Now, I've just left Tiger Woods, Bill Clinton, like those are nobodies. This is a celebrity as far as I'm concerned, because he just won the bronze medal, and here he was all of a sudden right in front of me. So I go up to him and I sort of congratulate him, which is not like me. I don't really reach out to people, bother people when they're doing something like that. So anyway, he thanked me and we got to talking, and at some point I said, yeah, I'm really excited to be here from South Carolina for nationals. Just got in last night. And as soon as he hears that, he's like, oh my God, Beau Welling, oh my God, you're here. We thought you had changed your mind. We were going to have you be a part of the opening ceremonies on Saturday, but you weren't here. Man, you have no idea. Like the town's excited, the club's excited. This is so great that you're here. So I'm looking around like, am I on a hidden camera television show or something? Like, am I getting punked? Like, what in the world is going on? But this whole North Carolina, South Carolina stick had apparently been known at the club, and so they're waiting to see will this nut job really show up. So in any event, I made my way over to the curling club. My reserve seat is they've taken a stool from the bar and turned it around up against the glass and taped my name over it, and I'm sitting. There are other people that are next to me, and so to my left is Cassie and Jamie's grandfather, Johnson's grandfather. Craig, what's his name? Lynn, not Lynn. Lynn, Johnson. Anyway, grandfather of the Johnson sisters.
Yeah.
So that was like, oh my God, this is really cool. But then to my right was Don Barkham's wife or girlfriend, and I think Craig, were you playing with him?
I wasn't playing with him that year.
That's,
I was playing with him
that year.
like the next year or something like that. But
yeah, but in any event, we went out to lunch at some point in this crazy Bemidji thing. I met you at this 2006 thing.
Yeah.
And so in any event, the first day goes on, people are, it's almost like I'm the celebrity. It's like, oh my God, you're the guy from South Carolina. You're the guy from South Carolina. And people are so nice, and it was wonderful. And I was having a great time. And when I had originally, I'm sorry, you guys are getting the long version. When I originally went up there, I wasn't sure if I was going to get bored like in an hour and want to leave or want to stay for a day or two. Yeah. So I actually had a one-way ticket into Bemidji. Like, who does that? But I end up, to make a long story short, I end up staying 9 days. So people taking me ice fishing, ice to play curling stones, dinners, drinking. I had a birthday while I was there, and like the town people threw me a birthday party. My mother was convinced I was having a midlife crisis. It gets to the end, and Mark Swanby was the head of the USCA at the time, and he recognizes president of the USCA at the time. He recognizes from the podium. I get a standing ovation from the people that are there. He names me the official Southern ambassador for the sport of curling. And that's cool. And some of the Olympians kind of came to me afterwards and said, "Oh, this is so cool. You got to stay one more day and walk with us in the Welcome Home U.S. Curler Parade." So the next thing I know, I'm fifth car in the parade. American flag starts at the Paul Bunyan statue, right downtown. End up at the and we've got my wife was very kind to bring me a drink now.
There you go.
And we're good. And so, end up at the Bemidji Lumberjack High School gymnasium. The place is packed. I've got a seat on the floor with the Olympians. It's like, you can't make this up. And so I eventually leave. and I really think this is in my rearview mirror. And about a month or two later, I get a call from the new president of USCA, which is Georgia West from Chicago. And she says, "Hey, I got your name for some people in Bemidji, and I understand you've got a lot of thoughts about our sport." And at first I thought, what in the world is this woman talking about? And then it did dawn on me, Joel, that maybe I did have a few pops at night and started to give unsolicited advice about what I thought people should be doing.
Sure.
And so she wanted to know all that. And so eventually she's like, "Beau, let me cut to the chase. We've been asked by the United States Olympic Committee to get somebody on our board that really isn't a curler. And we'd like to see if you might be interested in doing that." So in sort of late 2006, early 2007, I went onto the board as the first independent director of the USCA. So that started this crazy Forrest Gump of curling sort of story that ultimately leads to me being on the curling nation, talking to you guys.
Got it.
That's a hell of a trip.
That's a wild ride. I like the Forrest Gump of the curling world. That's pretty good.
I like that you got to go ice fishing.
Yeah.
And your first ever experience up north, proper up north.
Sure. Yeah, that's Bemidji's up north.
Yeah.
Definitely up north.
So it was great. It was a wonderful time.
Had you been that far north in the winter?
Let me think. Good question, Joel. I had probably not. I had gone to college in like Rhode Island, so that's not as far north. But yeah, I mean, certainly like curling in those first few years, I mean, exposed me to things that I never thought I would experience. I mean, I can remember being at a nationals in Hibbing or someplace, and it was, minus 30 degrees or something. And, in the South, if it gets to 0, we just die. Like we don't even know how to do.
Yeah, it just shut
so
it down.
That was
Shut it down for a day.
Yeah.
We're done.
Yep.
We're done.
Yeah.
Got it.
I was with you in Swift Current in 2010. I think you were the team leader. Was that your role in that at that championship?
That's right. So 2010, I got to be the team leader, and so that was quite an honor. 2010 was a big year in that. I got to go as part of the U.S. delegation to Vancouver. It was sort of in that experience in the Olympics that ultimately born starting the Palmetto Curling Club back home in Greenville, South Carolina. It's kind of what led to me to get involved with the World Curling Federation. But as you're pointing out, I was a team leader for U.S. women at Swift Current, Saskatchewan, Canada. One, I was convinced that nobody from South Carolina had ever been to Swift Current, Saskatchewan, Canada. I tried to get South Carolina Public Television to film this. But to me, one of the great parts of my whole story is that, Erica Brown in 1988, caught my attention being how young she was and in the Olympics. And then fast forward to 2010, she was the skip of the team that I took as the team leader to Swift Current. And so that was like a real cool, to me, sort of full circle moment. And just really, really cool. And I think somewhat embodies sort of one of the many unique and awesome things about the sport and about the community around the sport.
Yeah, it's just interesting that somebody, with a high profile job like yourself, you're going to a lot of kind of fancy, exotic-ish locations, and then you get yourself involved in curling and you start spending time in Hibbing and Bemidji and Swift
places
Current.
You never knew existed ever.
And places that, aren't real high on anybody's list necessarily. I've spent plenty of time in
Manitoba.
In places that are like, you're going where and why?
Some people vacation south in the winter. Curlers vacation further north.
Yeah.
Blind River, Ontario.
Yeah, Blind River. Yeah. Blind River was great, man.
I'm sure. I was one of my many regrets in life.
So
fast forward to now, you're the president of the World Curling Federation. We're going to throw some World Curling Federation.
Okay, hold on. I got a question about how that progression worked, because you were on the USCA board for quite a number of years. And then you became a United States WCF rep. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so how back in 2010 even. It was that long that you were just a rep for the U.S. on the WCF. And
That's right.
what year was it then that you became? And what's the process to go from WCF rep to WCF president?
So I was one of 4 reps from the United States, and I found the WCF part very, very interesting in terms of the partner that helps deliver the sport at the Olympics, the global nature of it, meeting people from around the world, like all of that, I found very, very interesting and very much enjoyed that. And I started to get more involved with the WCF because I felt like that was the right thing to do for the United States. And so, for example, I just come from Korea from the Youth Olympic Games, but the original Youth Olympic Winter Games was in 2012 in Innsbruck, Austria. It was the inaugural one. It was sort of Jack Rog's sort of thing, and we were pushing hard to try to get mixed doubles into the program of the Olympics. And so we were going to have that be at the original Youth Olympic Games. One of the competitions was mixed doubles. And so we sort of strategically said, why don't we go help the WCF's efforts, in terms of networking, liaising, whatnot with IOC members. So I went and spent 2 weeks in Innsbruck, and Kate Caithness, my predecessor, was a big pusher of this. And I think what she found is that I was an interesting person in this universe because I could speak curling to the non-curling Winter Olympic people, but yet I sort of came from this more outside perspective. And then with the golf perspective, like I had lots of stories and ways to sort of network with IOC people. And so I ended up getting used, if you will, in a good way, at both the 2014 and the 2018 Olympics as well, with this whole idea of trying to pursue sort of strategic aims. And so I got elected to the board in 2018, and Andy Anderson was my predecessor from the United States, from Chicago, and Andy had decided to step down and retire, and so I ran in 2018 and narrowly won an uncontested election. And so I went on to the board in 2018, and so my first task that Kate asked me to do was to kind of look at the strategic plan for the organization, which is what a lot of international federations do after an Olympics. So like, okay, let's do the new plan for the quad. And so I said, I will do this, I'll lead this effort, but like, I'm not just dusting off what we did before. Like, I want to start from the, ground zero, and let's build a new strategic plan. And so I did that, or I shouldn't say I did that. I helped lead that with our board and with our members, but did it from a very sort of bottoms up approach in terms of getting feedback, from member associations from around the world, feedback from individual people. And it's not unlike how I work at a golf club. Like when you come into an existing member-owned golf club, there's a lot of disparate opinions about what should be done. And so we've developed some processes by which to garner stakeholder engagement and buy-in. And so I did help do a process that was somewhat similar to that. And so we got a new forward plan approved, 18 months later. But it dawned on us that on the board that we didn't necessarily have the right structure to pursue strategy. So we had a board trying to operate very operationally, and it's very clear that good governance board needed to operate from strategy and policy. And so we ultimately formed another grassroots sort of group or member level group that we call the structural review group. And that led to kind of looking at some governance and reforms with how the organization was structured in order to sort of pursue strategy. So I did that. And then the election was in 2022. Kate termed out after 12 years. And so I had never had any intention of doing this role. But I got encouraged by three of our larger nations that they felt like they wanted to see me throw my hat in the ring. They felt I was maybe the right person to kind of continue leading the board as it relates to all the strategic sort of efforts. And so I think if it hadn't been COVID and the world hadn't moved to more online things, I probably would have just said no. but I felt like I'm nobody really super special. This board really needs to operate as a team of equals. And so in any event, I got coaxed by these nations into seeing if other people thought similarly, and I guess they did, because in 2022 I got elected as the whatever number president of the World Curling Federation. You guys are getting long stories tonight. I'm sorry.
That's
no,
all right.
that's
No,
perfect.
good.
No problem.
Interesting.
We're trying to learn a little bit about life in general and about you. So, do you want to talk about curling more? Or do you want to take a break from curling and talk about other things for
I don't know.
a minute?
You choose.
How much do you curl now? Do you curl at all?
No.
Not a lot, and I miss it. When I started, so my first really introduction to I never had an intention of becoming a curler. I was just fascinated with the sport, and then I think I got to Bemidji and I got fascinated by the people in the community, and then people started, teaching me curling, but it'd be like at national championships and stuff. Like that'd be what would get me out on the ice between draws and like be teaching me how to throw a curling stone. So it's sort of a very bizarre introduction to curling. And then people started taking me bonspiels, and I enjoyed all that. And then there was this exposure of me at the 2010 Olympics back home here in South Carolina. Like I was on the local television, that here's this crazy guy up with this ice sport. And local people started calling me saying, can we do this in Greenville? And I didn't think that there really would be a core interest, but while still in Vancouver, I set up a little Facebook page called South Carolina Curling. And before I had hit enter, like 500 people had liked this thing. This was like early days of Facebook, and that was like, holy smokes, what in the world's going on? So I got home, I met with some people, see if they were interested, and I'm truly trying to start this in Greenville. And lo and behold, we ended up starting the Palmetto Curling Club. It never would have been doable if not for the fact there's a series of expat Canadians here, many that work for Michelin, the tire manufacturer. But in any event, we started the Palmetto Curling Club. So to answer your question, Arena Club. And so when we started, I would curl a lot, both in the local, Arena Club League, as well as going and doing various bonspiels. As life has gotten busy, and it's super busy right now, it's hard for me to find time. Like I'm never here to do anything any sort of regular way. So like a league doesn't fit the way my life's being run right now. But I still enjoy it. I try to get out. I'll sub in the local league every so often. I'll go to a bonspiel every so often, but it's not nearly as much as I wished. And if you ask me how often I play golf, the answer would be very, very similar. Like it's hard for me to find, like I just got home from being in Korea for, 8 or 9 days. So like going and playing golf this weekend wasn't on the top of the list of things to do.
Sure.
So they both sort of seem to come in spurts. So, I probably haven't curled in several months, and I haven't played golf I played golf. It's probably been a couple, 3 months since I played golf too.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
I also haven't played golf in a couple, 3 months, but the weather
That's weather related.
Yeah.
It's more unfavorable up here. I did play on December 15th this year. It's the latest I've ever played in Wisconsin. That was pretty good.
I actually just saw this is more than you want to know. I just saw on the ride home tonight, I saw some data from the National Golf Foundation, which tracks all these statistics on golf. And this past December was the most rounds of golf ever played in December. And many parts of the country were much warmer. And so you had places that had crazy record rounds, like Northeast, and probably like where you're talking about too.
Yeah.
So it's just a worthless factoid running around my head right now.
No, that's fine. That's great. I can believe that 100%. There are a bunch of courses open around here in December.
So give us a little background on the golf and what you do and that whole story, that whole angle of Beau Welling.
Yeah. So I grew up a golfer. I started playing when I was 2. I'm about to turn 54. So 52 years of trying this sport, and like curling, Joel, it's just you can't master
Trying
it.
this sport.
I definitely reached my peak. But I was a bit of a kid that studied, doodled golf holes growing up, and I went to a wacky university called Brown University, and I played on the NCAA powerhouse Brown Bear golf team there. And Brown is sort of, students can make up their own course of study. And I was debating, do I do something around science or physics, or do I do something around art? That's how coherent I was. And I literally woke up one morning with like, wait a minute, golf course design. That's artistic and creative, but engineering and scientific. And right across the street from Brown was Rhode Island School of Design. So I started down this path of getting very interested in trying to be serious about this. This famous golf architect named Tom Bazley was building a golf course in my hometown. I started bugging him, asking him, how does one become a golf course designer? And he basically had to answer my phone call because my dad was on the development team of this project. So I was like a son of a client. And so that ultimately led to me working as a summer job with him kind of all throughout college. And ultimately, after college, I went to business school and kind of went down this other path of sort of finance and investment banking. But Mr. Fazio ultimately coaxed me back out of that. And I ended up helping run his company for about 10 years before leaving and starting a very creatively named company called Beau Welling Design. And so we do traditional golf course architecture, golf course design. We're also sort of master planners and landscape architects and planners. And we do have this relationship with Tiger Woods. So we help him with all of his golf design efforts. And but we do stuff, more and more stuff really kind of on our own. And so he kind of comes and goes with what he wants to do. And so it's a really great relationship for both of us. He happens to be really busy. We've got 3 projects under construction with him right now. So so there's lots going on between golf and curling. I like to say I'm pretty long Scottish sports at this point. So
Yeah.
Nice.
So one of my biggest bummers in my curling career was when Lindsey Vonn got hurt right before Sochi Olympics, because that's when Tiger and Lindsey were dating.
Oh, man.
And I figured he would have come to watch her at the Olympics, and being buddies with Beau, I would have got to meet Tiger Woods.
Oh, man.
Because he's definitely coming to curling. I mean,
man.
Beau's at curling like basically every day. I'm like, I'm sure I'm going to get to meet Tiger.
Yeah.
And then she gets fucking hurt and can't compete. And
Thanks, Lindsay.
way to go,
Way to
Lindsay.
go. Man.
Have you talked with Tiger about coming on the ice at some point?
You know, to be honest with you, I think if he had got introduced to this at a young age, I think he would have been a really good curler.
Probably
I think he's super aware of it. He's a very strategic sort of guy. Like the way he approaches golf is very sort of risk reward based, almost like a computer calculating risks and probabilities. And so I think he would have been an interesting curler. But obviously golf was his path. He certainly knows about me and my passion and role in curling, and we talk about it from time to time. But I think with his body, I think that my chances of getting him on the ice are probably
not anymore.
past at this
Not
point.
with that. Not with his.
We can give him a stick. It'd be fine.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think he'd be fine.
All right, I'm gonna lighten this up a little.
All right, lighten it up.
I'm gonna throw some. I'll just throw some quick hitter golf questions for you.
Sure.
All right. Music on the course. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Walk or ride?
I prefer to walk, and it's not because of exercising. It's because I find that when people walk, they talk and communicate more. And as soon as people ride in carts, they're on their phones, so they only talk to the person in the cart. They only see the other people at the green or tee. So I really encourage our clients to really promote walking, because I think it's the best, purest version of the game.
I like
because it allows a lot more of the camaraderie to come out.
I like that.
That's a great answer. I wasn't expecting that. I just thought we were going to get a walk or
I
ride
like- I
answer,
think
but
that's
that's
a great
way
answer.
better. I like to walk too, but I guess maybe I didn't realize why.
Why? I agree.
Now I
think
know.
about it. Yeah. Best morning cocktail on the golf course.
Oh, I probably personally be a Bloody Mary guy.
Okay.
If it's early.
All right.
Really early.
All right.
Best morning cocktail at a Gamecocks game. Tailgate.
That would be, it depends on game time. So if we've been bad lately, so that means noon games, which is really hard for us. But that would normally be a start with Bloody Marys and evolve to beer. Would be
Okay.
a early game deal.
How many games do you make a year?
So 7 home games a year, and I try to make them all. This past year, curling, we had our World Curling Congress in Seoul, Korea, so I missed a game. I missed the Florida game, I think it was. And then it seems like I had another curling commitment that made me miss another game. So I think I made 5 home games this year.
Okay.
But I've been in bizarre places, like trying to stream Gamecock football in the middle of the night, at like, Bled, Slovenia, or Belgrade,
we just had a conversation
Serbia
about
or wherever.
Craig watching a playoff game at in Grindelwald, Switzerland.
Yeah, I just watched the Packers play.
At
That started at
2:30
2:35 in the morning.
Yep.
It was a good time.
Baby draw or buttercut?
I'm a right to left guy, and
Okay,
if I can
okay.
keep it as a baby draw, that would be great. It ends up being a bad left a lot of times.
Got it. Okay, yeah. I'm unfortunately probably more of a left to right guy, so.
What's your favorite course that you've ever played?
That's a hard one. When anybody asks me superlatives, I end up talking for a long period of time about multiple places. So I was very fortunate to get to play Augusta National as a young person, so it's pretty high on the list. Cypress Point is super high on the list. Again, we had family friends that were members there, and so as a young person getting to play these two sort of cathedrals of golf,
That's pretty awesome.
that was super special. And both were designed by Alistair McKenzie, and so that was really my first exposure to golf design being a thing. So those will always be sort of super special places. My mother's half Irish, and I lived in Ireland for a while, so a lot of links golf in Ireland is super high on the list too.
Yeah.
But I could go on for like 20 minutes talking about great golf courses.
We don't want that. We just wanted the quick.
I think having been able to play Cypress Point and Augusta, those are good answers.
Who's going to win, Roy Tin Cup McIlroy or Happy Gilmore?
We got to go with Roars, right?
Rory? Okay.
Roy?
I like it. Roy McAvoy.
Best golf movie.
Oh, yeah.
And worst?
I got to go Caddyshack.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
the right
Caddyshack.
answer.
And that's the correct answer.
Yeah.
And
We
the
all
worst is
decided that
Caddyshack
beforehand.
2, right? And Caddyshack 2 is a pretty awful movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had another one. I just lost it.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, then.
I can't help you. Should we ask him a curling question now?
What are your thoughts on the golf ball rollback
Oh.
that's coming?
I think it's too little, too late. I don't think it means much. I think by the time it doesn't go into effect for elite level players until 2028, and then everybody else in 2030. And it's by 2028 they'll have figured out other variables to optimize that. I think the ultimate reduction will be, 5 yards or 7 yards, and I just don't think that really means anything in the grand scheme of things. I can tell you this, and I've had big debates with my USGA colleagues. When it got announced, we have not done anything differently about how we design golf courses, because I don't think it's going to be that big of an effect. It's a multivariable problem, and they're just talking about one of the variables, and so it's a much more complex situation. So I don't think it makes a big deal.
Great.
I think that it doesn't make sense for the amateur golfer personally, but like I can see something should happen.
We were discussing
for pros.
We were kind of discussing before the show that it should be like the brush heads now. Like you're playing in a tournament, you're playing in a sanctioned event, something. Okay, you have to use this golf ball, and Titleist can make one, and TaylorMade can make one, and whatever. But if it's league or whatever, just play your Pro V1, play your whatever, and that's.
I think the USGA and RNA were headed down the path of bifurcation, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think they got right up to the cusp of it and started getting a lot of negative feedback on it. So they come up with this, that the amateur level player at slower swing speeds, it should have substantially less effect. But I think to me, it's like, what are we trying to solve for? And so if it's to protect the St. Andrews and the Marions of the world that have no more land, that's fine. But let's talk about that. And so, I grew up playing with something we called a wood that had a persimmon head that was about that big. And now these guys have something they still call a wood that is highly engineered and about this big. And so to me, it's just, there are other arrows in the quiver, so to speak,
Sure.
of how to think about preserving these grand old golf courses. But I think for day in and day out golf, to your point, Craig, we don't need to be monkeying around making golf harder. Like, if anything, we need to be making it easier.
Yeah.
I think most people play too far back anyway. So
That's true.
but that's beside the point. All right. Curling.
What's your thoughts on short courses?
I love short courses. I feel like we've been kind of at the front end of doing a lot of them. It matches so well with being a more accessible version of golf, meaning non-golfers can even play it. It's relaxed, totally different environment.
Probably not you, Joel.
And you can do
Joel's
it in a way
pretty
that
bad.
good players can still enjoy as well. So we've been successful in doing a lot of big, high-profile short courses, and it's just been great. And obviously, the time commitment's less. So to me, they're awesome.
I think it's great. I think it's going to be a real important part of golf in the future is the ability to go and play, in maybe not half the time, but whatever, 2/3 the time, and still have a good experience. Where like I think a lot of the short courses historically have just been little dinky, crappy par threes, but now like if you can make them a little bit nicer, and make it accessible, and I love the idea of lights at short courses. I think that's the way that the golf industry
I was
grows.
just at the American Dream Mall in East Rutherford, New Jersey for Nationals, and like this mall was huge. Like it had a indoor ice rink, obviously for hockey and curling. They had an indoor water park.
Whoa.
They had indoor downhill skiing.
Whoa.
Like I saw two people in the food court eating lunch. One had a surfboard, one had a snowboard. and
Nice.
Cool.
And they had their own inside 18-hole course.
Wow.
It was Angry Birds themed.
Okay.
All right.
And it was a mini putt course.
Got it.
All right.
All right.
All right, we're going back to curling now?
Probably.
Sure.
Unless you got something else random you want to talk about for a minute, Beau.
No, it's good. Whatever you
Okay.
want.
WCF, and like this is a question that I have is I remember, and you probably remember this from your days on the USCA, that, there'd be every year or every couple years, there'd be a bunch of complaining about, where's from the members, so the different regions, where's our, basically instruction kit of running learn to curls. How do we grow the sport in our club, in our town, in our region? Do you find that to be similar at the WCF level? And is there like a strategy that you guys are trying to implement, like worldwide, kind of like we used to try and implement things nationwide at the USCA level?
Sure. So there are a whole bunch of things going on. So again, we're comprised of 73 different member associations, so 73 different countries. And so our job is really to try to help our member associations do things in their country, right? So we don't just come into the United States and start doing things. Anything would be done sort of in concert with USA Curling or wherever, Scottish Curling Canada, what have you. And so the strategic plan I referenced before sort of has sort of four main pillars, which is organizational sustainability, which is like how do we get better as an organization, development, how do we grow curling, engagement, so how do we get more eyeballs on curling, and then just competitions in general. And so when I took on this new role, we had a big summit. I actually called it an ideation seminar, which I quickly learned from the Scots is they don't like that word. I think that's an American word. But in any event, we had
Scots are very particular about certain weird shit, though. Like you just got sometimes you just got to ignore them when they start complaining about things.
So we had the board. We had some of our bigger member associations that have been marketing partners for us with us. We had our marketing partners. We had a series of athletes, some sponsors, et cetera, all meet in Toronto and sort of got locked in a windowless conference room for 3 days and really sort of looked at what do we need to do to try to pivot and maybe more modernized curling and look to the future. We had a whole series of other sports come and present online to us. Whether that had multiple people from golf, we had tennis, we've had taekwondo, we've had all kinds of people come and sort of share things that they're doing in their sport. And so out of this initiative came what we're very creatively have been calling 6 big ideas. And so the whole point is trying to look to the future with the expressed interest of trying to grow curling, both in terms of the number of curlers, the number of facilities, the number of fans. And so one of the big ideas is what's over my shoulder if I move out of the way. So we've rebranded to just World Curling. We dropped Federation with this new logo. And all of our digital assets are being tweaked in terms of how they're communicating with the expressed intent of trying to be communicating to a much younger audience. We've got a big initiative going on about facilities, of trying to not just, I think historically, the work that's been done around facilities has been like, oh, here's a blueprint, like let's share this blueprint. But we've got a big project going on to kind of look at curling club of the future and what does all that mean from an operational standpoint, like how it can be financially sustainable as well as some environmental sustainability part. And so we've got a couple of initiatives we're about to roll out vis-a-vis that would not necessarily be foreign to, the first one might not be super foreign to U.S. curling people, but we've just set up a couple of like quasi-temporary curling clubs in the Czech Republic, like in warehouse, like temporary ice, sort of in warehouse things, which we're calling, or they're calling easy curling ice. But the whole idea is to try to get and truly promote facility development worldwide. And you might see us start to brand and license facilities. We may even put some of our own capital into facilities, but we think there's something that needs to be done to sit and wait for sort of non-real estate development people at the member association level to figure out real estate development overnight. Like I think that's not going to work. And so we're trying to be more proactive in that regard. We have a big development operation going on led by Scott Arnold that we partnered with the World Academy of Sport. And so incredible amount of online training for both coaches, ice techs, athletes, players has been something we started a couple of years ago, but that's all ramping up. We've onboarded in a more serious way, or the process of onboarding more serious way, floor curling. Like we see this as a big opportunity, especially in some of the more developed, less developed, non-traditional curling places, of getting more interest in curling. And so we've partnered with Chad McMillan at Rock Solid, and that's a big undertaking we're doing. World Curling has never particularly been commercially oriented. And so, a significant part of our revenue comes from the Olympics, which is great, until the Olympics doesn't happen. And then all of a sudden, we're not the same organization. And Beijing was pretty scary, in that regard. And that's not something we're going to change overnight, but we have hired in essence, a chief commercial officer, James Beat from London, who has a long history working around sport and sponsorship. And so we're starting to monetize more of our stuff. So there's sort of lots of stuff going on. I think, Joel, you would know the Curling Nation stuff. I mean, broadcast is being disrupted in a big way. We have our own, in essence, television production operation within us, but linear TV is something that's quickly changing, dying. And so the subsidies that we have to put into broadcast are significant. So we've been exploring, figuring out broadcast in a lower cost way, a different way. We've done that with you guys. And I think that'll continue to kind of be a big effort to kind of look in that space of how do we keep eyeballs on curling, because the world is getting disrupted in that regard. One of the stats that we've learned along the way is if you look at the Beijing Olympics, of what Olympic broadcast system, the content they produced, only 1/6 of it from Beijing was in competition content. So almost 5/6 of it was storytelling, was clips, was other means of engaging. Wow. Yeah, and so we're looking at how do we onboard those kinds of things. And so there's lots going on. And so I sort of digress from your question, I think, about just simply growing curling, helping our member associations, but we're trying to create these tools and kits and things to help our members really promote the sport and develop the sport.
That's
And
interesting.
and we're trying to help each nation have their own pathway, because I think historically, we've said, I think the United States has too often tried to be like, let's do this like Canada, but we're not Canada, right? And then you've got Scotland trying to do what Scotland's trying to do, Switzerland trying to do what Switzerland's trying to do, but then you go to a place like Hungary or Sweden, and they're all different too. And then you go to Asia, and you even now go to Africa and South America, and they're all different too. So we're trying to work with each of our members to try to figure out developmental pathways that work for them, that might be different than what works for other people, because they're different. And so there's lots of stuff going on in terms of all of this. And I'm a client a long time ago told me, to be careful to not try to boil the ocean. And so I'm very sensitive about that. Of like, it's easy to talk all these grandiose things, but we're trying to put really actionable, realizable steps in place around all these 6 big ideas. And one of the other ones I forgot to mention is I think one of the things we learned from tennis is how super organized tennis is. And so we are not particularly organized in the sport of curling. You've got World Curling doing its events, you've got the slams, you got various promoters doing their events, national events, et cetera, and it's not particularly organized. And so World Curling owns world team rankings now, and so we're going to put a big effort in trying to get more organized around calendar, around events, around athletes, and ultimately even around facilities. And to that regard, we've expanded the remit of the Athletes Commission. So historically, the Athletes Commission was very narrow in terms of who it represented. It basically had to be World Championships or Olympics. But with the world rankings in our purview, that we feel like we got to get a much wider sort of funnel and the ability to listen and get feedback from athletes. So we're expanding how the Athlete Commission works, and in that regard, we've hired Rob Gordon to be an athlete support officer. So there's lots of stuff that's going to be coming and being discussed vis-a-vis this to sort of hopefully get curling more organized. I think if I say professionalized, that maybe gives people the wrong connotation, but it is in that direction. And so that's another big effort. And data is at the juxtaposition of so many of these things. And we have had a pretty antiquated data capture system at World Curling, and so it was a big effort on a new data platform as well. So in any event, I'll talk too long. There's lots of stuff going on that I hope will have lots of measurable, realizable results that we'll see over the next several years.
So I got some questions about streaming and broadcasting.
Yep.
With TV broadcasting in the U.S. right now just isn't really that feasible. It's just really expensive and can't sell the ads. And also live streaming, like the audience, the audience for live streaming curling is curlers. So live streaming is great. Curlers love it, but we're not getting in front of the non-curlers. So how do we fit that? How do we fit those together with a live streaming production being, less than a tenth of the cost of a TV broadcast? But how do we get that? How do we get the eyeballs from the TV coverage without the TV cost?
I mean, so that's what we're trying to work on, and obviously we got some flack at the Pan-Continental Curling about doing it in a curling club and lower cost broadcast, and had the issues with TSN. But I think this is the direction that we have to go. And, our OTT partner has been recast. We're in the process of changing all that. And so I think between sort of digital assets and channels that we're going to try to use to promote curling, as well as having a better OTT platform to engage with people is the first step. But to your point, like it's a small number of people, like it's curlers. And so we got to figure out how to get more eyeballs on the sport. And so there's, lots of people thinking about how we do that. And, you're in that space, certainly be open to any thoughts that you have, but it's, it's a very changing time. And so like we're still able to sell more traditional linear television into places like Japan, for example. But like doing that in other places, it's almost non-existent. And so even like us, the ability to sort of recoup costs on anything that we do is like increasingly challenging.
Sure, and I don't know if it's because we're live streamers, and the work that I've done and working with John with Curling Stadium, like we are just a bunch of tech nerds trying to figure this out.
Yep.
Like we are not professional broadcasters, which is why we're coming in at a much cheaper cost. So if you bring in, so I know that we're not quite yet at a TV level broadcast, but we'd like to get closer, and I don't know how to do that without bringing in the professionals at a higher cost. And would those professionals even want to do a live stream rather than a TV broadcast?
So I think it's all over the spectrum once you start putting the world lens on. So like what the content that you're able to do, like that is consumable in places around the world. There are other markets that want a quote unquote higher level of coverage. And so we're trying to work through all of that and trying to figure out like the right balance to all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike, I missed that.
No, that's okay. Sorry, I had to cough there. So I coughed on accident.
What like the streaming stuff that you guys put out on what formerly was Recast, and I'm not quite sure.
No, it's not Recast because somebody bought it and took it
right,
over.
what
So now
what
Recast
what
is back.
formerly was Recast, and I don't know exactly how the process works now because it ended. That all fell apart like since
Recast,
I've wanted to watch anything.
I think Recast is back now.
But like, what kind of numbers are you pulling on that in like North America versus Europe versus Asia for those kinds of events? Are they like surprising? Are they what you would think? And what is that you would think, I guess?
So I think the Recast, when we started with Recast, we were the first people to go with Recast, and so we didn't really know kind of what the deal would be. And Recast was based on a micropayments concept. So you either buy these tokens for a minimal amount of money, or you watch ads and develop tokens. But in any event, the revenue we generated off of our Recast efforts was greater than what we expected, but not that we had high expectations. And it was growing. And then Recast ran into its financing issues and quickly went through sort of a bankruptcy process and came out of that. But I think what we learned through that process is that we wanted to explore other vendors, other OTT providers, and one of it relates to data. So like with Recast, we didn't necessarily know who the people were. Like we were just getting micropayments and even sharing some of those micropayments with athletes. But we think there's a better, more robust platform for us. And I can't give you, Craig, the specifics of numbers of what they were. I mean, obviously it wasn't massive, but it was better than what I would have thought. But we think there's opportunity in this space. I don't think we're going to figure it out overnight, to be honest with you, because it's all changing all the time in terms of what's happening and whatnot. But one of the things that we've been working on is this concept of what we call the World Curling Family, which would be some way of identifying yourself as a curler, and you would get certain benefits out of this, of being a part of this. And so one of those very much might be the distribution of content from a streaming type platform. And so we're trying to figure all of that out. At the same time, we've got nations that want full television production. And so, but the problem is they're not necessarily willing to pay for it. And so that then becomes this sort of, big thing of, well, what do we do? How do we ramp up sponsorship to cover that cost? Do we just further subsidize it, et cetera? And so, that's where all this stuff starts to overlap and link. So we've now got somebody on staff that's trying to figure out commercial partnerships and commercial opportunities. How we use those partnerships and opportunities could be broadcast, could be through something else. But historically, we just sort of, we had our on ice sponsors, and that sort of helped subsidize events such that we then went and sold satellite time to various broadcasters around the world, and just that's the world that's just all changing in a really rapid place. I mean, you see it here in the United States with NBC basically getting out of the Olympic sports coverage market, except for the Olympics itself.
Got it.
So I don't have a perfect answer.
No,
except that it's a big deal.
There is no perfect answer. I don't think
it's a big deal that we are spending a lot of time trying to figure out what's the best way to do this for curling.
Sure.
How many board members are on the do I still call it WCF, or should I just
We're just starting to call it World Curling now, but
Okay.
there are eight board members, and then we now, part of that structural review group, one of the changes we did is we have the head of the Athletes Commission on the board. Right now, that's Jill Officer, and right now they don't have a vote. It's just voice only, and I think we'll look at that long term as to whether that makes sense to adjust or not. The reason we started out with voice, no vote, is that by Swiss law, which is what we're incorporated in, there's all kinds of fiduciary responsibilities that you have, and that relates to the totality of the organization. And so we wanted the athlete voice at the boardroom table, representing athletes solely, like representing that constituency. So that's how it started. But I could see that we may look at evolving that through time. So that's 8 plus Jill, 9.
So you said there's eight people plus, but you said 72 countries,
72 members.
72 members.
They would, like, when you were running for president, though, was there 72 vote, or like how many votes were there for that?
So every country, the way it's working currently, and we're looking at this too, potential changes, but the way it works now would be not very dissimilar to how USA Curling used to work, in that the various members self-report numbers of curlers, and they have a number of votes based on the number of curlers that they have. And I think what we're finding is that, or have found, is that we have some countries counting floor curlers, and we have some countries counting only on ice curlers. We have some people counting only more developed elite athlete curlers. So I'm not sure it's the perfect representation. It's all self-reported. So I'm not sure it's the perfect representation of the various ways that our members contribute to our organization. So we have an effort ongoing that's looking at how we might classify members in different ways based on different metrics. And this is something that badminton's done and many other sports have done. And so we've engaged with members a couple times already on this, and I think for the most part, members think it makes sense, and so we're continuing to develop that. And we may even tie in developmental dollars. So we have something called a DAP program, which is a developmental assistance program. We're going to rethink DAP and how that works. It used to just be every country got X amount, but we're going to look for that to evolve based on Canada's at one level, Nigeria's at another level, and there's all kinds of stuff in between. And so we're going to look at all that kind of in a different way, with trying to promote and incent behavior and development and things of that nature, and not just be a yearly thing, like a way to look at it more of a long-term basis in terms of development.
Sure. Well, I feel like we could probably just continue talking to Beau for pretty much ever.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's late in South Carolina, and he's still partially on Korea time, so maybe it's early. We have a series of questions that we always ask everybody, and some of them aren't going to necessarily apply to you because you're not this typical guest, which is great, and I'm glad we got a different kind of person on. But
we'll ask you a couple.
We'll ask accordingly.
There's a couple. All right. Obviously, I'm going to assume you'd consider Palmetto your home club. Do you have a outside of Palmetto? What is your favorite place that you've curled?
Bemidji will always be this sort of special place, so it's sort of in its own sort of box up there. But I would also say that just up the street in Charlotte, North Carolina, the Charlotte Club has been one. They have dedicated ice, and so they've been, wonderful to us at the Palmetto Club, and really helped and assisted us. A lot of our members are going up there, and so we got a special place in our heart for them. We have this friendly competition, which we call the 1712 Cup, because when I travel outside of the Carolinas, I'll get people to ask me. They'll ask me, like, how are things in Carolina? Well, the colony of Carolina ceased to really exist in 1712. Like, we've been apart since 1712.
I love it.
So we have the 1712 Cup that the Charlotte Curling Center and Palmetto Curling play. So they're a special place.
That's great. I like that.
I've also never heard Beau introduce himself as from anywhere other than the great state of South Carolina.
Great state of South Carolina.
It's always the great state of South Carolina.
I've been there.
That's right.
It's nice.
All right. Do you have a favorite Bonspiel that you've been to?
I'd say this goes back. I think some of these questions I'm going to answer. It's all like the formative moments of getting me into curling. I think were important, and so
Sure.
One of the first Bonspiels I started going to was in y'all's neck of the woods. So it's been the summer spiel in Green Bay. That used to be something that was a regular thing on the calendar. So that was lots of great memories from that.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
We haven't had that answer yet, but that's a good answer.
Nor have we had that
I
spiel
like
for
a
a
good
while.
summer spiel.
Yeah.
Good summer spiel.
Yeah.
Go outside.
Yeah.
That's flip-flops on.
Flip-flops.
Play some bags.
And the Green Bay Summer Spiel, you stop by, what's that bar on the way back to the Days Inn Hotel?
And doozies?
And Doozies, yeah.
There you go.
Oh, that's a good
All
time.
right.
So you've
Go.
maybe haven't curled a bunch and won a bunch of things, but you've traveled a bunch. So what's some of the weirder things that you've received?
What is that? Yeah, what's like the best or weirdest
thing
swag that you've maybe
you've
received in your travels?
That's a good one. I'm trying to think. I just came back from Korea with all kinds of stuff, including lots of strange things I don't want to eat.
I've been there. That's correct.
How much?
It's either
It's
either seaweed or dried fish. You don't want to eat it.
Nice.
A whole bunch of Ukrainian Olympic gear,
Whoa.
which is great. I'm pretty close to the Ukrainian Curling Federation. In playing in some of these world things, there's been this concept of jersey swapping sometimes, and
Okay.
like my weight yo-yos, and like I'm really big right now, and so I've got some really bad like Swedish gear that can't fit over my big gut. It's bright yellow and blue. That looks a little odd. I've got a Curling Canada golf shirt that, again, needs to be about 4 sizes, probably bigger. So nothing too out of the whack, but it's been fun to do these travels and get to know people, and
Nice.
I certainly appreciate any sort of gift. So
I like that. Nice. All right. You're going to a Bonspiel, and you can take your ideal team. We have allowed people to take 5-person team, so you can have 4 people plus yourself, or just take 3. Doesn't matter. Who you can have curlers, famous people, live, dead, whatever.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Who would you like to take with you, and where would you like to go?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I think I probably think about that question in terms of curlers as opposed to non-curlers, and probably more in terms of live curlers as opposed to dead curlers. So I think I'd either go in the direction of maybe some of the people who served on the board, WCF board with me.
Okay.
So those might be somebody like Bent Ramsfeld or Catherine Lindahl or Kate Caithness or Graham Prowse. So I think those are all special people to me. They're part of my journey in world curling. Or I might flip around and look at more of my origin story and go back to a Pete Finston, a Cassie Johnson. One of the key guys that helped start the Palmetto Curling Club was a guy named Bill Marshall, who was originally from Nova Scotia originally and had moved down to South Carolina and never thought he'd play curling again. And to this day, I think he kind of looks at me like this bizarre Pied Piper of curling, but he's been a key person that helped us at the Palmetto Curling Club. And I go anywhere with that guy. So
nice.
This is one of these questions again. I could probably go on and on and on. So
I like those answers.
You got a particular bonspiel you might go to?
Do you have some place that you would like to go?
Some place I'd like to go. I'd probably pick some rink in Scotland would be fine, but it's not so much the rink as more just being in Scotland.
Just being in Scotland. I like that.
And then I know you guys are Wisconsin guys, but like so much of my early orientation was in Minnesota. So, take me up to the range.
That's okay, Beau. Nobody's perfect. I mean, you can want to go to Minnesota and curl. It's all right. We forgive you.
I've heard Minnesota.
We've all been to the range. We all like it. We all go back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, last one. If you had a curling walk-up song, what would your curling walk-up song be?
Oh man, it'd probably be. That's a good question. It'd probably be like some AC/DC thing, like Who Made Who or Thunderstruck or something like that.
Yeah, I like that.
So, yeah.
You have a walk-up song when you give a presentation at World Curling? That'd be great.
Yeah.
Have some intro. Good. Beau needs some intro music if anybody's out there listening.
Maybe I'll incorporate that in.
I think so. Just loosen up the room a little bit before you walk in.
Shake it. Make it a little less stuffy there at World Curling. Sounds like you're doing some great things, though.
Have you got some World Curling sponsors that you'd like to give a little shout out to?
Sure.
Or Beau Welling design sponsors. Frankly, I really don't care.
Yeah, I mean, so we've got coming up in Europe, we've got LGT is a big sponsor of ours. La Gruyere cheese is a big sponsor, and then in the Canadian sponsors like OKT Tires and those kind of guys. So they've all been great, wonderful people in the curling space. We've just done a deal with a couple of new sponsors, including ISS and a foreign exchange company. So we're continuing to get more and more sponsors, and we're sort of excited about that. I think one of the things that I think is interesting about looking at who does sponsor us and why they sponsor us, I think one of it is that they feel like we are a values-based sport and something they feel comfortable aligning their brand to our brand in terms of what we are as a community and as a sport. And I think that's something that in today's day and age, we need to only promote even more and more. I'll maybe close it out with you guys by just saying that, I've said it many times and sometimes people will laugh at me, but I truly, honestly believe it, this whole adventure that I've been on. But I honestly believe that if the world had more curlers, the world would be a better place. And so I think it's incumbent on all of us to figure out, like, how do we go get more curlers? Because more people need to be exposed to the greatness of this sport, this community, and these values that we all have.
Love it. I can't. Okay,
that's a good way to wrap it up, though, isn't it? You're gonna ruin it.
But I can't let him go. I have my one question. I did my little research.
Okay.
This is how we get more curlers. I'm telling you.
This is it.
I'm telling you.
Okay, let's hear it.
This is how we do it. All right. I was doing a little research. I was reading on your golf web page. 3 people you want to have dinner with: Da Vinci, James Madison, and Oprah. Oprah, because she's one of the most influential women. Do you want to change that to Taylor Swift? Because I think that's the key to getting more curlers. Taylor Swift.
Yeah, maybe. I do think we have to. We do need to lead in young. I mean, for sure. And so there are obviously examples of people growing sports like pickleball with older people. But I think the future really is we need to figure out how to get more young people involved. And I think there's a real opportunity to do that. So maybe Tay-Tay fits into that.
All right. I love it. All right. Perfect.
Tay-Tay.
That's great. All right, Beau, thank you so much for coming on. We've monopolized far too much of your time. But we could.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed it.
Probably have a bazillion more questions. But yeah. Thank you. Safe travels.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Cheers. All right, that's it. Season 4, episode 8. Big thanks to Beau for coming on. That was a great interview. We probably could have asked him like a ton more questions, and he probably would have kept going and had great stories. Maybe we can have him on again. Who knows when? Maybe as the Olympics get closer or something. I'm sure he won't get busy at all.
No.
No, never. Big thanks to our sponsors, as always, Modus Financial. Visit moduscc.com. If you need some POS needs. Also, endgamecurling.com. Check them out if you need a new brush. It's getting towards the end of the season for many of us, I would imagine. But doesn't mean you can't upgrade. Yeah, I think that's it. Oh, you can always email the show if you want us to talk to somebody. Obviously, we can get them on if we can get the World Curling.
If we can get the president of World Curling on at the drop of a hat, we can get anybody.
We can get anybody. So email the show, curlingnation@curlingnetwork.com. We'll see what we can do. Otherwise, we still do have some merch, some ends cards. Email the show. We can get them out to you. Big thanks to my new friend Laura. She bought some. She was at the 5 and Under at Madison, and she saw me there, and she's like, "Hey, can I get some cards?" I said, "Absolutely, you can."
Is that the one that stopped by the shop? And
Probably.
then I said,
Yes.
"Find Mike."
Yep.
And she said, "Who's Mike?" I said,
the handsome one.
"Ask Mason, who the Modus Financial guy who was running the spiel." I said, "Ask Mason."
Ask the POS.
Ask the POS Mason who Mike is, and Mike will have the cards.
Yeah. Yep. But Laura was great. She was very excited to have some cards. So I want to give her a shout out. Big thanks to her for supporting the show.
Thanks for supporting the show.
Yep. I think that's it. Check us out. We're on Twitter, Facebook. I don't know. Other social media. I don't know. That's it. I don't have anything else. Mike.
Joel.
Craig.
Good curling, everybody. Out.